All right, hey everybody here. This is Orion saying with the Free Press and Shawn Windsor. We are here in the aftermath of number 10 Michigan's 35-14 demolishing at Wisconsin. I think the best way to describe this would be a debacle for Michigan on all fronts. Michigan was manhandled up front on defense, couldn't stop the run, and then the offense didn't score until it was down 35 points. Really, we can start anywhere. I mean, we can start with the offense.
Well, Jim Harbaugh put it pretty succinctly and bluntly. I thought he said he was out-prepared, out-coached, outworked. I can't remember the third one, but out-coached and out-prepared, which is odd because, maybe not odd, but, they had a bye week, right, Orion?
Yeah, they did.
They certainly should have been prepared. You can say out-coached and, whatever. What struck me was the lack of physicality, right? That's what, more than anything else, and look, I know there's a lot of the fan base out there right now that I'm sure is very upset and wondering when this is ever going to change. It's the fifth year for Harbaugh's tenure here in Ann Arbor. But just real quickly, if you look at Harbaugh's best teams, and he's won wherever he's been, they played from San Diego to Stanford to San Francisco, even the first couple of years in Ann Arbor, they played with a certain kind of ferocity and physicality, no matter what kind of style it was, no matter what kind of offense he was running, because he's adapted and changed over the years for that. This team, and to some degree last year's team, they don't play like him. They don't play like, remember how he was on the sidelines for a while the first couple of years, and he was throwing his clipboards. I'm not saying he needs to do that again, but there's something that's just not quite right. And a couple of players afterwards, Orion, talked about lacking an identity. And they're specifically maybe talking about scheme, but it's not just that. There is a lack of an identity, and it's the way they play. And you could see a huge difference in the nature of the ferocity, I thought, between the two teams today.
I think the biggest thing that stands out is that Wisconsin had an identity on offense. That was to run the ball. They knew what they were doing, they stuck with it, and it worked really well. Michigan, I think, has been characterized by lack of identity on offense. Jim Harbaugh said today after the game that he wants to be able to run the ball, he wants to be able to pass the ball, and he wants to be able to do both effectively and efficiently. Those were his words. So far, Michigan's offense yo-yos between both. Against Army, they ran the ball most of the game. They had 15 consecutive runs in the second half at one point. Today, they had, I think, 42 passing attempts to 15 runs. They had 40 rushing yards. That's uncharacteristic for a Jim Harbaugh team. And when you talk about this no-huddle spread offense, it doesn't mean that they're going to throw the ball and not run the ball. The run is still an important part of this new offense. But today, it seemed like they just sort of avoided it. They didn't really try to go for it. I was charting up the plays, and I think on 10 of Michigan's first 12 plays in the first quarter, those 10 plays were passes. So you're passing the ball on 83% of your plays in the first quarter.
Yeah, it does seem to kind of come in bunches, and they got to figure that out, and that's part of the identity you're talking about. But as Harbaugh said after the game, they didn't block or tackle well, and they didn't. And I'm not sure last year's team did that effectively enough, at least at the end of the season. There's just something that they're searching for, and I think partly it's Harbaugh, partly maybe it's just this collection of players. It's not that they're not tough. That's ridiculous. They're playing college Division I football. Anybody steps on that field has got a certain amount of toughness. It's just, and here's another thing. It's. I think there's some psychological factors going on here with the internal, not competitiveness, but Nick Eubanks, the tight end, talking about this after the game. He said the fumble inside the 10-yard line when they're about to tie the game early in the first quarter, midway through the first quarter. He said that killed us, and that's fine. It was a tough turnover, but then when Wisconsin scored the second touchdown, went down 14-0. Eubanks talked about looking at slumped shoulders, heads being down. That early in the game, I think it was 2-3 minutes left in the first quarter at that point.
Yeah.
There's a sense that they weren't going to win the game.
Yeah.
They were starting to doubt themselves. That's what we're talking about, the mental fortitude. Not to compete and get hit and withstand the violence of this game, but the mental capacity to overcome that. This team does not have that. Harbaugh has not been able to imbue these last couple of seasons with that quality, and I'm not sure why.
That's a good point. I think Eubanks was also saying that first fumble essentially killed the team, and it's weird to say that.
Shouldn't.
But it shouldn't. But as you saw, you have to agree.
It did.
Because Michigan lost all juice after that fumble. They had a 60-yard pass play to Ronnie Bell, right? Huge play. It looked like they were going to respond immediately to Wisconsin. and then they fumble the ball away, and after that they lost all their mojo, juju, whatever you want to call it. It just they didn't have it anymore.
No, and
that's about one play.
Exactly, you can't do that, and I'm not sure why these last couple of years, especially, I mean, so far what we've seen this year, and again, I hate to keep harping on late last year, but I'm not sure what it is, but to me, that's what Harbaugh's got to figure out more than anything else. I mean, he will figure out the balance, I think, with the offense. I mean, he's proven to be adaptable throughout his career. I think that will get better. You can see openings. Maybe the receivers didn't get quite the separation you want at times, but there are plays out there. But I think that's the key, that he's got to figure out how to get that, whatever that inferno is that he carries, back into his players on the field on a consistent basis, sort of to where they're not slumping and hanging their heads 5-6 minutes into the game.
Scheme-wise, what I'm looking for is the big question coming into the year was what is this new offense capable of? Can it be explosive? Can it score a lot of points? Can it be built for the exact type of game that today's game was? This new offense is supposed to keep up with high-scoring offenses. It's supposed to take more slack off the defense so that the defense doesn't have to pitch a shutout. So far, it looks like it hasn't been able to do that. Today, it didn't score until it was down 35 points. That's simply not enough. It's really not even close to being enough.
No, and you knew this because the defense lost some really good players from a year ago, and they can be solid this year. And you can see on the defensive line. Now look, Wisconsin's always got a good offensive line, and they may have one of their better ones again. They had no shot, but so you're going to have to score. Most teams have to score. You watch the college football playoffs the last couple of years, and I think everybody's scoring at least 30 points. So we understand why Harbaugh wanted to do this, why he's doing it. He's got to do this to compete. But you can't lose whatever that essential quality that he's had that has made him a pretty successful coach.
This team does not remind me of the 2016 team. The way that team just steamrolled everyone. I mean, it was apparent from the season opener. The way they played against Middle Tennessee State and Army, they were not reminiscent of Harbaugh's best teams. Harbaugh's best teams, they beat.
They're nasty.
They beat the living crap out of teams that aren't as good.
Like
in 2016, they were just steamrolling everyone. Even last year, after the Notre Dame game, they just steamrolled everyone until Ohio State. 2015, same thing. So they're missing that quality that his best teams seem to have.
I agree.
So
I agree,
we'll see if
and I don't know that he's changed necessarily. I mean, I don't want to make too much of his sideline demeanor, but he's controlled it, and who knows? I mean, that's been going on for the last couple of years. He's changed that, but those qualities were part of his teams, and I feel like that's missing right now. I don't want to keep saying that over and over, but I really think everything else they can figure out, the schemes and so forth, that is going to be a much harder thing to figure out.
We'll see if they can recapture that going forward. Michigan is now 2-1, 0-1 in Big Ten play. It'll be back at home against Rutgers next week. The schedule does not get any easier. They have Iowa, Penn State, Notre Dame, Michigan State, Ohio State left.
No, that's brutal.
It's brutal.
Yeah. So they got to beat Rutgers, and then go from there. We'll see.
Yeah. All right. We'll have more coverage up at freepress.com, free.com. So you can find it there. Thanks for watching, and take care.